I have talked to guys who have put 6+ years into their fucking training, into their diet, into their physique, and still look like they still look the same as year two. And that's a lot of wasted time. That's a lot of early mornings at the gym. That's a lot of skipped social events. That's a lot of family dinners where people brought their own fucking Tupperwares, or time that could have been invested into family or friends, whatever, that got invested into the gym but didn't produce physique results. That's pretty heartbreaking, to be honest. And this rant, this video, this is all going to be based off of real conversations I've had with clients or potential clients. This is real situations that people are in. And a lot of coaches will just tell you, oh, you're undisciplined, you're whatever, you don't have what it takes, whatever. That doesn't sound like a discipline problem to me. If you're attempting to put in the work for 6 years just to look the same as you did in year two, it doesn't necessarily sound like a discipline problem. It just sounds like you're doing the wrong thing. And so this video is going to be about all the ways that guys waste time in building their physique, and obviously how to do things the right way. Wouldn't be a very useful video if I just bagged on you and told you how much you suck. But anyways, really, the first and main trap that I see guys fall into, this is where a lot of my clients come to me in this position, is hitting a plateau and just kind of accepting it. It sounds insane to me when I say it out loud, but it's pretty common, and I've fallen into it once or twice myself. I'll talk to guys and they'll tell me, hey, I don't look how I want to look. I've been at this for a long time, whatever. And I ask them, hey, this is one of my favorite questions to ask. When is the last time you felt like you made real progress? And they'll tell me 2 years. And I'm like, 2 fucking years? And what have you changed? Well, nothing. Sounds crazy when you say it out loud, but it's a pretty common trap guys fall into. They hit a plateau, with their training, with their physique, with some aspect of things. And you're kind of told in this sphere, never give up, don't be a bitch, which I agree with. But at the same time, if you've tried not being a bitch and never given up for 6 months, and what you're doing isn't getting you any farther, you're kind of being a bitch by not changing it, But for real, a lot of guys hit this wall. They get stuck there. They just keep trying to do the same thing to push past it. And eventually their brain almost reprograms to a new level of what they think they're capable of, because they go, oh, it's just natural, progress slows down. Like, even as a natural, bro, you got a decade of fucking progress in you before you really hit a wall. Guys on gear, you got a lot more than that. But guys will get in this situation and they literally reprogram their brain to think, hey, that's all I'm capable of. And eventually it becomes a fact. They just, oh yeah, this is what progress is supposed to be like, And then, they finally change something or start working with a coach and they're like, oh fuck, maybe I was wrong about that. But that's a pretty common pitfall. I've been there a couple times, in my early dirty bulk days, where I would, hit a wall with fucking food and I'd start eating like shit. My digestion would be terrible. My appetite would be terrible. My energy would be terrible. And I'd just be like, oh, well, this is what's supposed to happen when you bulk. And no, that is not what was supposed to happen when I bulked. After doing a fucking 10-month off season the right way, my 4-month bulks where I'd hit a wall at month 2 were not the right approach in the fucking slightest. But yeah, it's very, very, very perplexing how guys get in these situations and then just sit there. But anyways, the next big pitfall I see people fall into is kind of dicking around with their training. Specifically overtraining. This is also based on like real conversations with clients. I talked to a guy and he's like, oh, I've been going 6 to 7 days a week for 2 years. And I spend 2 hours in the gym and I feel like I'm just not seeing the fucking progress that I should be. And I'm like, well, brother, what are you doing for 2 hours in the gym? And he tells me, I'm like, well, you can cut that out. You can cut that out. That's way too many sets. That's like, there's so many guys who still think when it comes to training, more overall volume is better. It's just not the fucking case, guys. If you're training 6 to 7 days a week, you are not training hard enough. And if you are training hard enough, you're just digging yourself into a hole. And that's why you're still fucking stuck. And you've been wasting time. Guys, that's not how you're, people have done it, genetic freaks who are taking a lot of gear have built decent physiques training like that. I'm not going to deny that. You look at the Arnold days, there was a lot of guys training like that. You're not Arnold Schwarzenegger. You're fucking Joe Smith from Kentucky who's a firefighter and has 3 kids. You don't have the time or the genetics to be trying to train like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just counterintuitive. It's the wrong style of training for what you're trying to achieve. You want, I'm assuming most of you guys who are watching this don't compete. And what you want is the best bang for your buck muscle growth with the least amount of time taken out of your normal life and the other things you want to do. I get it. We all like being in the gym for the most part, but fuck, man, I take this shit pretty seriously, and I got other things to do besides the gym. I do fitness influencing and coaching full time, and I do not want to spend my whole fucking life in the gym. So, really, guys, more is better, but not more volume, more intensity. The more productive you can make the sets you have, the less time you got to spend in the gym for more muscle gain. It's pretty fucking simple. I see a lot of guys doing this shit. Your training style should match what you're trying to do. You guys want to be bodybuilders. You don't want to be fucking endurance athletes or fucking, CrossFitters. I wouldn't prep for a fucking bodybuilding show by running a strict powerlifting program with like no accessories that is strictly focused on being strong at 1 rep maxes on squat, bench, and deadlift. Nothing against powerlifting. I think it's fucking awesome. But that's not what I'm trying to be. And, I don't think most of you guys are powerlifters. I don't think my content really caters to that demographic. But, you wouldn't go to a CrossFit gym and do their training expecting to be a bodybuilder either. It's counterintuitive. You look at most bodybuilders these days, most people aren't in there for 2-3 hours, 7 days a week doing 2-a-days. Like that's shit from before people knew what they were doing, But realistically, guys, 4 productive 1-hour sessions a week is going to get you way farther than, 2 hours of junk volume 6 days a week. And when I say junk volume, what I mean by that is, extremely redundant exercises, hitting muscle groups way too frequently, just doing more just to do more because you think it's better. If you find a certain volume where you're like, wow, I'm seeing crazy muscle growth at this volume, stick with it. I don't care if that's 10 sets per muscle group per week or 20. I really don't care. But considering if you're still watching this video, you're probably kind of stuck in some way or another. You probably haven't found that. So take this advice to heart, for real. The last big place I see a lot of guys get stuck is taking advice that is way too fucking advanced for them. And this is a huge time waster. They follow all these influencers. I'm guilty of it too. I've tried some out there shit from influencers I follow. First off, if you have the physique to be a popular fitness influencer, you have arguably very good genetics, which most of us don't have. I'm not the bottom of the barrel, but I'm nowhere near the top either in that regard. So they can get away with shit that you can't. When I see guys comment on my videos and they're like, well, I can eat McDonald's and still be fucking 10% body fat. I'm like, hey, good for you, man. I'm glad you have good genetics. I've tried that. I can't do it. So guys, listen to these dudes who, generally lie about their dosages. They have good genetics. Some of them have the full-time influence. So they really don't have fuck all to worry about besides the gym. So people take their approach and model it after these guys. And I'm like, well, you're nothing like this guy. Your lifestyle's nothing like him. Your genetics are nothing like him. Your build is nothing like him. Why would you try and copy these people? And this is where I get people fucking stepping over hundreds to pick up pennies. They listen to these super advanced guys, which is awesome. They have some good insight. But, this is where I have even sometimes clients, but I was going to say more people in my DMs at like, hey man, should I try injectable YK11 for the myostatin inhibition and take halotestin with it for bone growth? And I'm like, hey bro, can you bench 3 plates? Can you squat 4 plates? Can you deadlift 5 plates? Well, no. Okay. There's things that are a lot more productive that you could be doing than all these fucking exotic compounds and laundry lists of peptides. It's just like you're really leaving value on the table by not prioritizing the basics first. If you're brand new in the gym, you shouldn't be jumping to just the fucking machines and skipping all your free weight. It's the same idea. If you don't have a decent strength base, you shouldn't be worried about all this other shit. You know what I built my physique on? Literally up until this year, what I built my base on was heavy compound movements with relatively high doses of the standard anabolics with a little growth hormone. Not even a lot of growth hormone because I couldn't afford shit, and I didn't use insulin either. Literally just those basics built my physique. I just said, you know what? I'm going to get stronger on these basic movement patterns, train them with intensity, and put myself in the hormonal environment to back it up. My diet was even not great. I was able to do that with those two things with a kind of not great diet. Now imagine what you could do if your diet's fucking dialed in. So, there's a lot of great advice out there. But if you're, in this stage where, you're taking gear, you're putting a lot of time and effort into the gym and you don't look the way you want to look, ask yourself, have I mastered the basics? Am I strong on the basic movement patterns? Have I eaten on a meal plan for a year straight? Have I, been, I couldn't think of any more examples, but it's really because it's that simple. It's like, have you been doing the fucking basics? If not, then all this extra shit you're putting money into, all these exotic compounds and bullshit, that could be way better spent. That could be spent on a gym with really good barbells. You can get strong at your fucking basics. Could be spent on a coach to actually teach you what the fucking basics are you need to get better at. It could be spent on growth hormone. The fucking basics, guys. You're worried about shit that fucking Nick Walker's doing when you're half the size you need to be to win a local show. I know you guys don't compete. I'm just trying to fucking conceptualize this for you. But, there's so many fucking pitfalls that will just eat you fucking alive in this game. And I am so guilty of it. That's why all the videos I make are based off of things I've fucked up for the most part. I was that guy. I'd be, trying all this. I'd be on 5 compounds at once and couldn't bench 3 plates yet. I would fucking, be worried about like the perfect intro workout shake when I wasn't even following a meal plan, and I wasn't, eating clean for 95% of my meals. It's a really easy place to fall into, where you're just trying to throw more gear at it, throw more volume at it, and you're scratching your head like, why the fuck isn't this working? Now, as I said, this would be a dumb video if I was just bagging on you guys for sucking. So how do we get out of this? Well, it's not a magic fix. I said this in a video the other day. The only thing between you and the physique you want is 1,000 on-plan meals, 1,000 intense training sessions, and 1,000 pins of steroids. And it really is true, guys. The thing that gets you out of these plateaus is essentially having a plan that works, first of all, because if you're plateaued, what you're doing isn't working. If you're wasting time, what you're doing isn't working. Having a plan that works is the number one key. I honestly didn't know what I was doing for a long time. I made progress purely on luck. When that luck ran out, I hired a coach, so I had a fucking plan that I knew worked. How did I know it worked? Because, well, the person that I hired had done it a million fucking times and also had a physique to show for it. Pretty simple. Qualifies itself. So first step is getting a plan that works. And the second part is just simply fucking executing it, no matter what. I do not, as a coach, I do not really care what is going on in your life. I do, because I like to have a good relationship with all my clients. I like to know what's going on. I like to know that they're in a good place. However, work's stressful, wife's bitching at you, whatever. You still got meals to eat. Talking with a newer client the other day, and he was telling me, or I had to get on him about the same thing every week on check-ins. He's doing his training, he's doing his cardio. He's like, oh, just the meals are hard to get down, and like I'll miss one every day or something like that. But like, I'm really trying. And I'm like, don't try. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, here's the simplest way to approach it. You have X amount of clean, on-plan meals to eat a day. There's no way to reprogram your brain. There's no way to there's no magic fucking schedule or brain trick to use. You simply have X amount of meals to eat every day. And if you want the progress you could be getting, you're going to eat them. Doesn't matter if that means you have to cram 2 meals after work. It doesn't matter if that means you have to set an alarm in the middle of the night to get up to eat a meal. That is your prerogative. You know, I'm a coach. I can give a plan. I can give a roadmap. I can't do the actions for people. So I simply had to tell them straight up, anything under 100% of meals eaten is not to standard. I'm not saying it's a failure. I'm not saying it's the end of the world and you suck, but it's not to standard. You know, we have meal plans for a reason. They're meant to be followed. Exactly. So, you know, you have X amount of meals to eat every day. You need to eat 100% of them. It doesn't matter how you do it, but they need to get eaten. And that's the simplest way to think about this. You have a plan that works. That plan gives you action items that you need to do every day. If you are not doing those fucking action items, you cannot expect progress. Point fucking blank. And that's just the thing I feel like a lot of people can't wrap their head around. They're like, I'm trying, I'm doing my best, but you're not. Because if you were, the plan would be executed on 100%. And once people get that through their heads, that it's just like, this is what I need to do, and I can't expect what I want until I fucking do it. Once people get that through their heads, things work out. Doesn't matter if you've been plateaued because your training is overkill. Doesn't matter if it's because you've been doing the wrong thing. It doesn't matter if it's because you've been taking the wrong advice. Once you have a plan that works, if you execute on it, you are going to progress. You may have your dream physique in 6 months. You may have it in a year. You may have it in 2 years, but you'll have it. And it is that simple, guys. So if you are stuck in a plateau, you've been wasting time, you look the same as you did 4 fucking years ago, you need a plan that works, and you need to make it happen. Until you do that, nothing will change. Anyways, guys, very serious rant today, but enjoy.